A human-alien romance. The galactic diplomat. Zara Novak, Earth's youngest interstellar diplomat, stepped onto the alien soil of Zorthax with a mixture of trepidation and exhilaration. The purple hues of the distant mountains and the shimmering spires of the floating city Corzin dazzled her senses, yet the weight of her mission hung heavy on her shoulders. As the first human emissary to this remote corner of the galaxy, Zara knew the future of interstellar relations rested on her ability to forge connections and bridge the vast cultural divide. The Zortharians were an ancient and proud people, their civilization far older than humanity's. Earning their trust would take all her skills in diplomacy and communication. Forbidden attraction. Zara's first meeting with the Zorthax High Council did not go as planned. The austere chamber with its towering opalescent pillars and thrumming energy fields seemed designed to intimidate. The councillors regarded her with unwavering stares, their faceted eyes inscrutable. All except one, Thaxil, the youngest member of the council, regarded Zara with open curiosity. Unlike his peers clad in flowing robes, Thaxil wore a form-fitting suit that accentuated his lithe frame. His emerald skin shimmered under the chamber's pulsing lights. Over the following weeks, as Zara navigated the intricacies of Zortharian politics and custom, she found herself drawn to Thaxil's quick wit and unflinching honesty. In a world of veiled meanings and shifty alliances, his forthrightness enthralled her. Thaxil, too, felt the pull of attraction. Zara's fiery spirit and unwavering resolve intrigued him. She was utterly alien, yet her determination to learn and understand touched something deep within him. Cultural chasm. As their clandestine meetings grew more frequent, Zara and Thaxil soon discovered the chasm of cultural misunderstanding that yawned between their worlds. Thaxil struggled to grasp concepts that Zara took for granted: individual liberty, democratic rule, the pursuit of happiness. His world was one of rigid hierarchy, where every Zortharian knew their place from birth to death. Yet as they traded stories beneath alien stars, a bond deeper than culture took root. Thaxil marveled at humanity's relentless drive to explore, to question, to push beyond the boundaries of the known. Zara in turn came to appreciate the rich traditions and fierce loyalties that had sustained the Zortharians for millennia. Shadows of intrigue. Unknown to the lovers, that every meeting was being watched. Zortharian spies, loyal to Councillor Zadorok, a ruthless traditionalist, tracked their movements and recorded their every word. Zadorok seethed with xenophobic rage at the thought of an alien temptress corrupting one of Zorthax's most promising young leaders. The humiliation of Thaxil would serve as a potent weapon in the games of power and status that consumed the High Council. As Zara and Thaxil kissed beneath the twin moons of Zorthax, reveling in the joy of newfound love, the seeds of their destruction were already being sown. Treachery most foul was afoot, and soon the lovers would find their bond tested in the fires of war and madness. Little did they suspect, the fate of worlds would soon hinge upon the passions of two star-crossed lovers, one human, one alien, both determined to forge a future together against impossible odds. The stage was set for a conflict that would reshape the galactic balance of power and test the strength of the human spirit as never before. The fires of rebellion. Whispers in the dark. In the shadowed alleyways of Corzin, whispers of rebellion grew louder by the day. The downtrodden masses, long oppressed by the rule of the High Council, found hope in the words of a mysterious figure known only as the Liberator. Zara first heard the name spoken in hushed tones at a seedy cantina in the city's underlevels. Her diplomat's instincts, honed by years of reading the currents of power, warned her that momentous events were unfolding beneath the surface of Zortharian society. She shared her concerns with Thaxil during one of their secret trysts in the shimmering gardens of the floating city. To her surprise, Thaxil revealed that he too had heard rumblings of unrest among the lower castes. The powder keg ignites. The uneasy peace shattered on the eve of the Grand Conjunction, a rare celestial alignment venerated by the Zortharians. As the council gathered to perform the sacred rites, a massive explosion rocked the great temple, shattering its iridescent dome and hurling the ruling elite into chaos. In the confusion, rebel forces stormed the council chambers, armed with advanced energy weapons unlike any Zara had seen on Zorthax. The Liberator himself led the charge, his face concealed behind a shimmering force field. Thaxil found himself torn between his duty to defend the council and his growing doubts about the wisdom of their rule. In the heat of battle, a stray plasma bolt grazed his chest, sending him tumbling into darkness. The human connection. As the rebel forces tightened their grip on the city, Zara made a shocking discovery in the ruins of the temple. Among the debris lay fragments of human technology, the same advanced weapons wielded by the rebels. The implications were staggering. Had the rebels somehow acquired human weaponry, or was there a deeper human involvement in the uprising? Zara's diplomatic mission had suddenly become a desperate quest for answers. The betrayal. Thaxil woke to find himself a prisoner of the rebels, his wounds tended to by their medics. Face to face with the Liberator at last, he was stunned to recognize a figure from his past. Xander, a brilliant scientist exiled by the Council years ago for his radical views. Xander sought to recruit Thaxil to the rebel cause, revealing the true depths of corruption and cruelty that festered at the heart of Zortharian rule. The ancient caste system, he'd argued, was a tool of oppression, used by the elite to crush the spirits of the masses. Thaxil found himself wavering, his once unshakable loyalty to the council crumbling in the face of Xander's passionate rhetoric. But the thought of Zara and the love they had forged across an interstellar divide held him back. He could not betray her trust, even for the sake of his people. The price of love. Zara, desperate to find Thaxil, used her diplomatic credentials to penetrate the rebel-held districts of Khorzan. Her search led her to a makeshift prison camp, where she found Thaxil bruised and battered, but alive. Their reunion was cut short by the arrival of Xander and his elite guard. In a moment of shattering revelation, Zara learned the truth. The rebels had acquired human weapons through a secret pact with a rogue Terran arms dealer, a man known only as the Merchant. Xander offered Zara a devil's bargain. In exchange for Thaxil's freedom, she must convince the Terran Council to recognize the legitimacy of the rebel government and provide them with even more advanced weapons. Failure to comply, Xander implied with a cruel smile, would mean a swift and painful end for her lover. As Thaxil strained against his bonds, his eyes pleading with Zara not to give in, she faced an impossible choice. The fate of the Zortharian people and the future of human-alien relations hung in the balance. Zara stood at the nexus of history, torn between love and duty, with the weight of worlds on her shoulders. Love and loyalty tested. A devil's bargain. Zara's mind raced as she grappled with Xander's ultimatum. To save Thaxil, she would have to betray her own people, her own principles. Yet the alternative, watching her lover suffer and die at the hands of the rebels, was too horrific to contemplate. In a moment of agonizing clarity, Zara made her choice. With a heavy heart, she agreed to Xander's terms. The rebel leader's triumph was palpable as he released Thaxil into her arms. As they clung to each other in the shadows of the rebel compound, Thaxil sensed the weight of Zara's decision. "What have you done, my love?" he whispered, his voice hoarse with fear and sorrow. The truth unmasked. Zara's mission took on a desperate urgency as she raced to uncover the truth behind the human weapons in rebel hands. Her investigation led her to a shocking revelation. The Merchant was no mere arms dealer, but a high-ranking Terran official, a man with the power to plunge humanity into an interstellar war. The implications were staggering. If the Terran Council discovered that one of their own was arming alien rebels, the fragile peace between Earth and the Zortharian Empire could shatter like glass. Zara knew she had to find a way to expose the Merchant and stop the flow of weapons, all while keeping her promise to Xander. The fate of two worlds hung in the balance. The price of peace. As the rebel forces tightened their grip on Khorzan, Zara and Thaxil hatched a desperate plan. They would arrange a meeting between Xander and representatives of the Terran Council, a chance for the rebel leader to make his case for independence and recognition. In exchange, Xander would hand over the merchant and halt the use of human weapons in the conflict. It was a gamble, but one they had to take. The meeting, held in secret in the shattered ruins of the Great Temple, was a tense affair. Xander, his eyes gleaming with the zeal of a true believer, laid out his vision for a free and equal Zorthax. The Terran delegates, skeptical at first, found themselves swayed by the rebel leader's passion and eloquence. The betrayal. Just as it seemed peace was within grasp, disaster struck. The merchant, tipped off by his spies within the rebel movement, launched a surprise attack on the meeting. Chaos erupted as plasma bolts scorched the ancient stone, and the screams of the dying filled the air. In the confusion, Thaxel saw Xander fall, his chest pierced by a searing beam of light. The rebel leader's life drained away as Thaxel cradled him in his arms, his final words a whispered plea, "Finish what we started, brother." The choice. As the battle raged around them, Zara and Thaxel faced a moment of truth. They could flee, leaving the Zortharian people to their fate, and preserving their own fragile love. Or they could fight, risking everything to forge a new future for both their worlds. In the end, the decision was simple. Hand in hand, they raced into the heart of the battle, their love a shield against the storm of violence and hatred. They fought not for glory or power, but for the dream of a universe where human and Zortharian could stand as equals, united by bonds of friendship and understanding. And though the road ahead was dark and uncertain, they knew that together they could face any challenge, weather any storm. For in the crucible of war and chaos, their love had been forged into something unbreakable, a force that could reshape the destiny of worlds, shattered hearts, broken worlds. The wages of war. In the days following the Temple massacre, the conflict on Zorthax escalated to a horrifying new level. With Xander's death, the rebel movement fractured into a dozen competing factions, each vying for control of the shattered capital. The once gleaming streets of Khorzan became a nightmarish labyrinth of rubble and ruin, echoing with the cries of the wounded and the dying. The Terran weapons, now in the hands of every petty warlord and would-be revolutionary, sowed chaos and destruction on an unimaginable scale. Zara and Thaxel, their love strained to the breaking point by the weight of their choices, fought on against impossible odds. By day, they rallied the dwindling ranks of the Loyalists, struggling to hold back the tide of anarchy. By night, they clung to each other in moments of stolen solace, their passion tinged with desperation and sorrow. The unraveling. As the weeks turned to months, the toll of the war began to show on the once vibrant face of Zorthax. The floating gardens of Khorzan, once a marvel of bioengineering, withered and died, choked by the toxic fumes of the unending battles. The majestic spires, symbols of Zortharian pride and ingenuity, toppled one by one, reduced to smoking ruins by the relentless bombardment. Thaxil, his spirit battered by the suffering of his people, grew increasingly distant and withdrawn. The idealistic young counselor that Zara had fallen in love would seem to vanish before her eyes, replaced by a grim, battle-hardened warrior, consumed by the need for vengeance. Zara, too, felt the weight of the conflict on her soul. The diplomatic skills that had once been her greatest strength now seemed woefully inadequate in the face of such unrelenting savagery. She found herself questioning her own beliefs, her own identity, as the lines between right and wrong blurred and shifted with each passing day. The breaking point. The final blow came on a day of blood and fire, when the rebel forces unleashed a devastating new weapon on the Loyalist stronghold. The skies above Khorzan turned a sickly shade of green as the bioweapon took hold, spreading a hideous plague that consumed flesh and bone alike. Thaxil, his face a mask of agony, watched helplessly as his comrades fell one by one, their bodies dissolving into a putrid sludge before his eyes. In a moment of blind rage, he turned on Zara, his words cruel and cutting, blaming her and all of humanity for the destruction of his world. Zora, her heart shattered by Thaxel's rejection, stumbled through the ruins of the city, her mind reeling from the horror of what she had witnessed. She barely registered the arrival of the Terran evacuation shuttles, the grim-faced soldiers in their hermetically sealed armor, shuffling the last of the human survivors onto the waiting ships. The parting. As the shuttles blasted off into the poisoned sky, Zora pressed her face against the viewport, her eyes searching for one last glimpse of Thaxel amidst the chaos. But he was gone, lost to the maelstrom of violence and despair that had consumed their once shining love. In that moment, as the ruins of Khorasan receded into the distance, Zara felt a part of her own soul torn away, forever lost among the shattered spires and bleeding skies of Zorthax. The price of their love, it seemed, had been higher than either of them could ever have imagined. But even as despair threatened to engulf her, Zara felt a flicker of determination, a spark of the indomitable human spirit that had carried her species to the stars and beyond. She knew that this could not be the end, that there had to be a way to heal the wounds of war and find a path to peace. And so, as the shuttles hurtled through the void towards an uncertain future, Zara made a silent vow. She would return to Zorthax, no matter the cost. She would find Thaxel, and together they would build a new world from the ashes of the old. For in the face of annihilation, the only choice was to fight, to strive, to hope. The human heart, after all, was a resilient thing, able to endure the unendurable and emerge stronger for the breaking. The strength of the human spirit. The return. Zora stepped out of the shuttle onto the war-torn soil of Zorthax, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. The once vibrant planet was now a haunted wasteland, its cities reduced to rubble, its fields choked with the remnants of war. But Zara had not come alone. Behind her, a team of Earth's finest diplomats, scientists, and engineers emerged from the shuttle, their faces set with grim resolve. They had come to heal the wounds of the past, to forge a new future from the ashes of war. The search. For months, Zara and her team labored tirelessly to track down the scattered remnants of the Zortharian people. They braved the treacherous ruins of Khorasan, navigated the twisted politics of the warlords, and endured the suspicion and hostility of a people betrayed. Through it all, Zara clung to the hope of finding Thaxel, the love she had lost among the flames of war. She searched every refugee camp, every hidden stronghold, her heart aching with each passing day. The discovery. Deep in the heart of the Zorthaxian wastelands, in a hidden bunker shielded from the ravages of the bioweapon, Zara found him at last. Thaxel, his once proud form wasted by hunger and despair, stared at her with eyes haunted by the horrors he had witnessed. In that moment, all the months of longing, all the agonies of separation fell away. Zara rushed into his arms, their tears mingling as they clung to each other, lost in the sheer relief of reunion. The revelation. But their joy was short-lived. As they emerged from the bunker, they found themselves surrounded by a group of haggard rebels, their weapons trained on the human intruders. Zara, her voice steady with conviction, stepped forward to meet them. She spoke of her own world's history, of the wars and atrocities that had nearly destroyed humanity, and of the hard-won lessons of peace and unity that had allowed them to reach the stars. She offered them a vision of a future free from the cycles of hatred and revenge, a future where Zortharian and human could stand as equals, united by bonds of friendship and understanding. To her surprise, the rebels lowered their weapons, their faces softening with a glimmer of hope. In that moment, Zara realized that her words had touched something deep within them, a yearning for a better way that transcended species and culture. The rebuilding. In the weeks and months that followed, Zara and Thaxel worked side by side to bring their vision to life. With the help of the human team and a growing number of Zortharian allies, they established a new government, one dedicated to the principles of equality, compassion, and mutual understanding. Brick by brick, they rebuilt the shattered cities of Zorthax, transforming them into beacons of hope and renewal. Human technology and Zortharian ingenuity combined to create marvels beyond imagining, from vast hydroponic farms that fed the hungry to soaring monuments that celebrated the unity of their peoples. The legacy. Years later, as Zara stood hand in hand with Thaxil on the grand balcony of the rebuilt Khorzan citadel, she reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. They had endured the fires of war, the agony of loss, and the long, hard road to redemption. But through it all, a love had endured, a testament to the unbreakable strength of the human spirit. In each other, they had found the courage to face the impossible, to build a new world from the ashes of the old. As the twin suns of Zorthax set over the horizon, bathing the city in a warm, golden glow, Zara knew that their story would be remembered for generations to come. A story of love and loss, of sacrifice and redemption, of the boundless resilience of the human heart. And though the scars of the past would never fully fade, Zara and Thaxil had learned the most precious lesson of all, that in the face of darkness, the only choice was to stand together, to fight for the light, and to never ever give up hope. For that was the true strength of the human spirit, the power to endure, to heal, to love, and to rise again, no matter the odds. And in that strength, the promise of a brighter tomorrow would always endure, a shining beacon of hope for all the peoples of the galaxy.